Here on You in Consulting, I lead you through the consulting jungle. I'm Jack and spent 5 years as a consultant and project manager with McKinsey, but there are many players in the consulting markets. Commonly, the famous triumvirate of the MBB strategy consulting firms, McKinsey, BCG and Bain, is said to lead the consulting markets. However, what about the famous Big Four companies, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, EY and KPMG? How do the Big Four really compare with the MBB companies? From my coaching sessions and discussions with you, I observe that many of you aspire to a career at the MBB companies. Some of you are even interning with or working at one of the Big Four companies in order to later move on to joining McKinsey, BCG or Bain. Hence, a related question for many of you is, how well do the Big Four companies serve as a transition point towards MBB? In this video, I will cover the following 3 topics for you. First, MBB versus the Big Four. Who is the consulting jungle king? Second, what services do the Big Four companies traditionally offer and how do their services fundamentally differ from the MBB service portfolio? Third, I want to share some of my very own personal experiences and reflections on the Big Four versus MBB. And finally, I will conclude on the odds of success of moving from a Big Four company into McKinsey, BCG or Bain. Let's get started with a comparison of MBB versus the Big Four. Who is the consulting jungle king? I want to revisit this question. Now, you may ask, haven't we just answered this question? Of course, it's the MBB companies. And indeed, while it does not publish its revenue data, it is estimated that McKinsey in 2020 generated more than $10 billion in revenue. But what now about the Big Four companies? The Big Four companies, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, EY and KPMG. While it is probably true that McKinsey in 2020 earned more than $10 billion in revenue, the Big Four companies, which have to publish their revenue data, earned 3 to 5 times as much in revenue. If you want a similar comparison for employment data, McKinsey & Company employs around 30,000 members of staff, which includes both consultants and support staff members. But each of the Big Four companies employs around 10 times as many employees. They are giants, and you have all reason to argue that Now I wonder if this initial comparison of facts already surprised some amongst you. Even though the MBB companies are perceived as the leaders of the consulting markets, they are dwarfed by the Big Four companies in terms of revenue and number of employees. What's that? Oh, it's not a jungle animal. Never seen that one before. Oh, it's gone. Let us in this video's second part compare the service offerings of the Big Four and the MBB companies, which at least traditionally have actually been rather different from each other. In 2 previous videos, I introduced you to the strategy consulting firm Matrix. Whenever a strategy consulting firm or you do a consulting project, it will be somewhere positioned on the matrix in terms of the industry you serve as well as the business function you support. Furthermore, each project is unique, and because you either help a client overcome unique challenges or help save costs at enormous scales, the MBB companies can earn very handsome margins. Now, what do the Big Four companies actually do? Traditionally, the Big Four companies have been auditing companies. The very large corporations, especially the listed corporations, are legally required to once a year publish their financial statement, which includes the balance sheet, the profit and loss statement, the cash flow statement, and many further appendices. And they are also legally required to hire an auditing company that validates that the accounting is correct, that the internal bookings have been done correctly. So this is the job of the auditing companies. The prestige of the Big Four auditing companies emerges from the fact that they typically serve the most renowned clients around the world, very large multinational listed corporations. And it's also their bread and butter business because, as I said, these financial statements have to be published and validated once a year and annually. Their second service line is tax optimization. They help their multinational corporation clients to manage the international tax jungle and they also set up interlaced legal entities to reduce tax payments. Thirdly, there are transaction advisory services. Whenever two companies want to merge with each other, or if one company wants to acquire another company, a due diligence will happen in which all the company's assets and opportunities will be carefully assessed. Also, at that point, the monetary value of these companies will need to be determined. So evaluation needs to take place. It's a challenging but very exciting subject because these companies are dynamic entities, but now you have to assign a static value to them. And this is also done by the Big Four companies. Why these services are exciting and complex, I would still argue that to some extent they also present routine operations. I mean, the financial statements appear once a year, and also the auditing has to take place annually, and to some extent it's a repetitive process. With regards to tax optimization services, you have to optimize against public regulations which also remain rather static. And even with regards to evaluation services, there you have to pay attention to international frameworks and conventions. So this may be one of the reasons why traditionally the margins in these fields are lower than in strategy consulting, where I would say the projects tend to be more unique, and also they very often aim to have a more immediate impact on increasing operating profit. The Big Four companies serve further segments, and they also are trying to expand their business into the more lucrative consulting markets. This, however, is not easy because VNBB and other strategy consulting firms are defending their territory fiercely. Maybe this is a topic for another video. Now, let me share some further reflections and personal experiences on the Big Four versus MBB. I would like to draw your attention to another KPI. I told you that each of the Big Four companies generates 3 to 5 times more in revenue than McKinsey, and also they employ 10 times as many employees. However, if you combine these data, you come out with this. And this shows you that on average, each McKinsey member of staff generates $300,000 per year in revenue, compared to only half of that in the Big Four companies. Combined with the, on average, larger margins in the strategy consulting business, this altogether might explain why generally salaries in the big consulting firms are lower than in the strategy consulting firms. This is something that I can confirm from my own experience. Before joining McKinsey, I was interviewing with one of the Big Four companies, and I must admit I was shocked that it offered me an annual salary that was 40% lower of what McKinsey was offering as an entry salary. And when I said, hey guys, I hold a PhD degree, which in Germany, not everywhere, is valued highly, the Big Four company offered to raise its annual salary offer by a meager 3%. To be fair, you will work fewer hours in a Big Four company compared to McKinsey, but not 40% less. While of course the Big Four companies are prestigious employers by themselves, I would like to move on to the question on whether the Big Four companies present a recommendable transition point towards MBB for those of you who intend to join a Big Four company for some time to maybe later join a top consulting firm. And to analyze this, let me pull out this chart for you, which sums up the total number of employees of McKinsey, BCG and Bain on the one hand, and Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, EY and KPMG on the other hand. Now these figures include all employees, hence consultants as well as supporting staff. Still the picture is stark. In 2020, the MBB companies employed 65,000 employees, while the Big Four companies employed more than 1.15 million members of staff, which almost equals the factor 20. And here within lies a problem for those of you who like to move on from a Big Four to an MBB company. First, you are not alone. I'm aware that there actually are many Big Four employees who consider this career move, so there's competition even between Big Four leavers who want to join MBB. Second, there's a more subtle issue here. I keep preaching that the MBB companies love pre-selection criteria, so they love to see in their candidates that they previously managed to get into highly selective companies or organizations. Now, this does not really apply to the Big Four companies, which you can see are huge. Given that they are almost 20 times larger, the Big Four companies also have less strict admission criteria in comparison to the MBB companies. I know from my own experience that previous work experience at a Big Four company is not that much appreciated by the MBBs. I myself once did a very interesting internship at a Big Four company, but I realized later that MBB members of staff were not really impressed about that part of my previous work experience. In fact, while there are rare examples of former Big Four employees managing to get into MBB, I think during my time at McKinsey, I did not meet anyone with a Big Four background. So yes, it's possible, but very difficult because, yeah, I'm afraid it sounds a bit silly in terms of prestige. You are trying to move up the ladder even further. Hence, if you consider doing an internship at the Big Four just to move into strategy consulting, then I would rather suggest you to do an internship at a reputable Tier 2 consulting firm or even a smaller strategy consulting firm that was founded by ex-MBBs. So I hope I made clear that while the Big Four companies are the market leaders within their core industries, especially auditing, and have earned tremendous reputation in there, traditionally the Big Four and MBB companies are active in different market segments. By the way, in case you wonder why sometimes my look and lighting slightly changed in this video, I realized that the question on how the Big Four and the MBB companies compare with each other is very important to many of you, which is why I created this video for you on my channel. A few sequences of this video I have extracted from the several videos on the consulting industry market landscape that I've created for my Management Consulting Guide online course. If you want to learn more about your consulting career and the industry as a whole, you can find the video course trailer here. And to learn how to access the course and for a lot of awesome free business and consulting advice, sign up to my UN Consulting newsletter on unconsulting.com/newsletter. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you have questions on consulting careers, whether an MBB or the Big Four, let me know in the comments. I pledge to get back to every single one of you. So you may decide for yourself who is king of the jungle. Just for the sake of completeness, both lions and elephants don't live in the jungle.